Hello knife enthusiasts, today I'm going to make a video review of the EKA Swede 38 folding knife, which I consider to be a mainstay utility slip joint type folding knife from Sweden. And being from Sweden myself, I am reminded of the Mora knife, which is very common around here and it's growing in popularity around the world. Plastic handle, very affordable, high utility, mid-sized type of tool knife that everyone's had and used a couple of during their life or seen people use, and it's so common it's almost invisible to normal people. I haven't seen any reviews on this one, the EKA Swede 38, so I figured I'd make one, post it and contribute to the general body of knowledge here on YouTube. And here we go, here's the knife. And this knife was made by EKA, which is a Swedish company. EKA is short for Eskilstuna Knivfabriks Aktiebolag. It's an acronym for Eskilstuna Knife Factory LLC, basically. If you want to know more about EKA, who has been around since 1882, please consider watching fellow YouTuber Ester Schmalhaus's videos on the EKA Swede 88 and the EKA Swede 8 folding knives. In there he speaks with insight into the rich history and traditions of that knife-making city. The designer of the EKA Swede 38 is a man named Sigvard Bernadotte, who is of the Swedish royal family. He wasn't on the direct succession to the throne, so he focused instead on design and arts, and became a successful industrial designer here in Sweden. He was known for using contemporary and modern materials, like this one, accurate plastic instead of traditional wood, and also known for having a good, sharp eye for ergonomics. He's made other things, such as the Röda Klara wall-mounted hand-cranked can opener that are just ubiquitous here in Sweden. Everyone's got one. In the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they were in all the homes, and they're still on sale. So, timeless classics. Sharp, crisp, clean lines, indicative of the 1960s. And no frills, so in that sense it's a very Scandinavian sort of knife. One powerful attribute of this particular knife is the strong backspring. The backspring is what's keeping this knife open in the open position and closed in the closed position, and you can kind of see it sticking out there. That's what's putting tension on this blade, the back of the blade tang, to keep it open in the open position. This is a strong backspring in the sense that it takes a bit of force and will to close it one-handed. You can kind of hear it. Listen. Requiring two-handed operation to open and close safely in most cases. If you compare it to a other well-known slip joint knife like this Swiss Victorinox Spartan Swiss Army knife, listen. A much crisper snap, but a softer snap from the weaker backspring. Or this Leatherman ST Juice, for instance, also a slip joint design. A very subtle backspring. That's also very easy to close one-handed, both of these knives are, compared to the EKA knife, which really takes a bit of deliberation. So the strong backspring is a good attribute of a working knife. It's non-locking, if that's a consideration to you where you live or how you work or your general philosophy on knife and knife use. This knife is 76 grams weight, which is 2.7 ounces. Closed length is 103 millimeters, which comes to 10 centimeters roughly, or about around 4 inches. Open it's 183 millimeters, 7.15 inches. And that makes the blade an 80 millimeter or 8 centimeter blade, or a 3.15 inch blade. The handle is made from acrylate plastic, advertised as impact resistant, durable, and it is, really. I've seen these used and abused around boats for most of my life, and as outdoor utility knives, they don't swell, shrink, crack like wood do. But it's not a modern, sexy plastic like a fiber-reinforced nylon or G10. So it has its limitations. I like this handle. The handle is orange, as you can see, which is a signal color, nice for locating your knife if you drop it in grass or bottom of a boat. It's also available, this knife, in dark blue, light blue, black and white. I prefer the orange because of its signal color qualities. The handle is also, for me, very hand-filling. It's rather thick for a pocket knife. It is actually about the same thickness as that Victorinox we saw before, almost exactly to the millimeter. And also that S2 Juice that we took a look at, the Leatherman tool, also very similar in thickness. And all these knives and tools are made to be pocketable. It's long enough, however, to afford a full 4-finger grip, and it has a hand guard, a finger guard at least. That's also great for slightly rougher use, a bit of a safety feature, and also tells you exactly where to put your hand to get a full 4-finger grip, with your thumb resting naturally on the heel of the handle and not out on the blade. When it comes to the blade dimensions, we also got the blade stock, which is fairly thin at 2.8 millimeters. It's not quite so thin as a Swiss Army knife, but nearly. But it retains that thickness for most of the blade and only tapers down towards the tip here when the drop of the drop point begins. The blade shape is a pronounced drop point, straight spined, drops very steeply. The edge part of the blade is very straight with just a short aggressive run of belly, enough for you to do some roll cutting. Very sharp edge for piercing. You can also cut at an angle and engage something other than just the tip, which is good for wear and tear. But the tip itself is acute and sharp enough for my favorite use of this knife, which is a fishing knife. Sharp knife, stick it in the poker hole, rest it against the back of the tip of the blade and just slice that fish straight open. And because it doesn't have any super ergonomic swells on the back or here, it's very austere and simple, it's easy to manipulate in all kinds of pinch holes and rotate it as you work. It is a bit slick, however. The grip comes from the ergonomic lines, the basic shapes of the handle, not from some sort of aggressive texturing or some traction material. The blade steel on this knife is Sandvik, also Swedish, 12C27, very, very common in Swedish knives and very, very common in European knives in general. Great steel, high quality steel, absolutely a slightly higher end choice than a Swiss Army knife and that Leatherman tool, but not a modern super steel by any stretch of the imagination. Originally developed as a razor steel for razor blades. It does its job, it's stainless, and it can take a very keen edge. This, however, is also available, this knife is available in a carbon steel blade, but that's blackened. So if you get one of these knives with a black blade, you know it's a carbon steel blade. If it's shiny, it's 12C27 stainless, and that's all you need to know. The design itself, like I said, is clean and austere. Look at this. This is pretty much the only marking. It says EKA Sweden. Nothing else. Beyond that, the blade is completely sterile. Has a very short relief edge running down to the terminal edge, which makes it a bit of a high precision job to sharpen this knife, if that's a consideration for you. Otherwise, it's a full flat ground blade like a lot of pen blades and utility blades. So it's a great cleaver, great slicer, great food preparation knife. Screw together construction, even though it's from the 60s. These brass screws are normal slotted straight screws. You can open these with any screwdriver, a coin if you have the right dimensions on coins where you live, or a screwdriver on a multi-tool, a Swiss Army knife, anything. I'll break this knife apart later at the end of the video and show you guys what I mean. Cutting, well, I've been using this knife primarily for fish and light camp tasks, as I pointed out. But it's a fair wood processing knife. If by wood processing you mean like carving a new tent peg or sharpening a stick or something like that. It lends itself well to a full hammer grip. And I've never felt unsafe using this, even though it's not per se a locking blade. go. There's a piece of paper, normal ground weight, rather thin paper, not phone book paper, nothing like that, but I've used this for a bit of whittling and a bit of fish processing, and it's still acting out its razor steel heritage. It's cutting paper like it's nobody's business. Okay, it tore a bit there, but that's me getting sloppy with angles. Look. There we go. And for a $20 knife, that's all I feel that I'm able to ask for. And you can bring this edge back quite quickly and simply. I'll break this down, I'll show you guys, and then I'll get back to you and finish the video. And here we are. I've taken these 4 brass screws out, 2 on each side. There we go. And pop these handle scales right off. The knife itself with its brass inner liners. The rivet that holds the back spring in place, you can see the blade, how it rests. One last thing about the blade, guys. It has a pretty short relief edge leading down to the terminal edge. And that makes it a bit of a more high precision job to sharpen it on sharpening stones of any kind. If that's a problem to you, it's almost like some benchmade knives. If that's a problem to you, please consider that in your decisions. Anyway, that's the insides of the EKA Swede 38. And here we go, we've put the knife back together. I'd like to compare it to another EKA knife, the EKA Swede 88 here in Masur birch. Look at this. They're pretty much the same dimensions. We put them back spine to spine. And the EKA, this knife is 3 times the price of the Swede 38. And even though the dimensions are similar, because of the curvature of the bottom of this handle, for me this is a 3-finger knife. If I try a full 4-finger grip, the natural inclination here is for my pinky to want to slip off. But other than that, look. Same type of finger guard, same general angles for ergonomics, same straight spine. It's just the angle of the butt of the handle that is inversed, and the knives relative to one another. And this one has a lanyard hole and this one doesn't, because it's a dedicated pocket knife. Beyond that, you can look at one of the mainstay EKA modern knives, like the Swede 8 here in Bubinga wood. Also, roughly the same size. This is a look back. Radically different blade shape. Again, roughly the same size. And this thing is twice the price of the EKA Swede 38. So, easy serviceability. The EKA Swede 38 used to be available in Bubinga wood, but it's not being produced anymore, so it's just as acrylate plastic. This thing is available in, I think, is it thermal run plastic? This is simply a wooden knife, only available in a couple of different types of wood. So, if you like slip joint knives, if you like utility knives, no frills, clean design, clean lines, and you like traditional designs, please consider this EKA Swede 38 for your next knife purchase or your next wilderness outing. If you're into locking knives, super materials, the latest and the greatest, this is probably not the best choice for you, but I thank you anyway for tuning in and listening, and I hope I've been helpful to some of you guys out there. Calling on one, out.